Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Boxiest, and today we're going to continue the What If series. What if events had gone differently? And in this What If, we're going to change the history of Cobra Kai. What if Yoon joined Miyagi-Do during the events of Cobra Kai Season 6, Part 2? If you haven't seen the previous part, I would recommend you go watch it before continuing this one. So in this timeline, Carmen would still be rushed to the hospital, and Johnny and Miguel would have to leave, and Danny would call for Anthony to take Miguel's place. Anthony and Amanda would arrive in Barcelona, and Daniel and Sam would be happy to see them. The Miyagi-Do students would still go explore Barcelona, and they would still be at the tapas bar. This is when the Cobra Kais would show up, and Sam would still go outside to get some air. Quan would confront Yoon, and the Cobra Kais would want to mess with Yoon. But Hawk and Dimitri would stand with Yoon, so Hawk, Yoon, and Dimitri would fight the Cobra Kais. Some of the Cobra Kais and Miyagi-Dos would get involved, but Robbie and Tori and a couple of the other dojos would want to stop the fight, and eventually Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do would be kicked out of the tapas bar, and once they were kicked out, Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai would go their separate ways, so that night would be pretty uneventful. Sam would still be walking down the beach, and she would still run into Axel. She would still compliment Axel on his kata, and the interaction between Sam and Axel would stay the same. Eventually, Miguel and Johnny would come back to Barcelona, so the Saikai Taikai would continue. So Anthony wouldn't get a chance to fight in this timeline, but he would still go and watch the Saikai Taikai in person. Miyagi-Do would still fight Furia de Pantera. Dimitri would still start off, and he still wouldn't be doing so well. So in this timeline, Dimitri would tag in Hawk. Hawk would continue the fight, and he would get a point, and Hawk would tag in Sam. Sam would continue fighting, and she would still get a point. Sam would tag in Yoon, and Yoon would get the final point. And in this timeline, Miyagi-Do would beat Furia de Pantera. And during the next team match, Miyagi-Do would fight Redentores. Miguel would start off, and he would tag in Hawk. And Hawk would land the first point, and he would tag in Dimitri. Dimitri would continue the fight, and he would get the second point, and eventually he would tag in Robbie. Robbie would continue to fight, and he would get the final point. So Miyagi-Do would beat Redentores in this timeline, and they would still advance to their matches. Cobra Kai would still fight Tiger Strike, but in this timeline, Cobra Kai would be focused. The fight would continue, and Quan would land the final point. Miyagi-Do would still fight Cobra Kai. Quan and Robbie would start off, but in this timeline, Quan would score a point on Robbie. Quan would still tag out, and Robbie would tag in Miguel, and he would get the first point. Sam and Tori would fight, and Tori would land a point on Sam. So Sam would tag in Hawk, and Tori would tag in Chun-Hee. Hawk would get the second point, and they would both tag out. Yoon and Quan would continue the fight. Both Quan and Yoon would be fighting with anger, and Yoon would want to get revenge on Quan. But in this timeline, Quan would get the final point, so Cobra Kai would be Miyagi-Do. But in this timeline, neither dojo would be eliminated, and they would both qualify for the semifinals. The semifinals would begin. Quan and Diego would still fight, but Quan would still defeat him. Zara and Maria would fight, but Zara would still defeat Maria. Axel would still fight Robbie in the semifinals, and that fight would stay the same. In this timeline, Robbie would land a hit on Axel. Miyagi-Do would cheer. Robbie would use a combination of offense and defense, and he would remember all his training. Sensei would get mad that Axel got hit, and he would want Axel to get more aggressive. The final round would begin. Robbie would continue to land hits on Axel. Everyone would be surprised, and they would begin to cheer, but this will make Axel mad, and he would begin to adapt, and he would get some points on Robbie. So in this timeline, Axel would defeat Robbie, and Axel would advance to the finals. Sam and Tori would fight, and they would both use a combination of offense and defense. The match would be close, so in this timeline, Tori would defeat Sam, so she would advance to the finals. Tori and Zara would fight, and Zara would still get the upper hand in the first round, and she would still be ahead by 5 points. Tori would still be distracted, and she wouldn't be focused, so the fight would resume. Tori would continue fighting, but Tori still wouldn't be fighting properly, and Zara would continue landing points on Tori, and she would still get another 5 points. The final round would begin. Tori and Zara would face off. Tori would try to land some hits on Zara, but Zara would be able to counter Tori's attacks, and in this timeline, Zara would get a knockdown, so Zara would defeat Tori in this timeline. Zara would still be the girls' Saikai Taikai World Champion. The boys' finals would begin. Quan would fight Axel in the finals. Quan would be fighting with offense and aggression, but Axel would be able to fight back against Quan, and he would score a couple points in the first round. Kreese would want Quan to show no mercy. Quan would continue fighting Axel, and he would continue fighting with aggression, and Quan would start to get even angrier, but Axel would use a combination of offense and defense. So in this timeline, Axel would defeat Quan. Axel would be the boys' champion, so the Iron Dragons would win. Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai would go home in defeat. Sensei Kim and her students would go back to Korea, and Tori would go back to the valley. Even though Miyagi-Do lost, Miyagi-Do would remain open, and Tori would rejoin Miyagi-Do, and things would be a lot more peaceful in the valley. Kwon and the rest of the Cobra Kais would go back to Korea, and Kwon would continue his training at Master Kim's dojang, and they would start training for the next Saikai Taikai. And that is where I'm gonna end this what if. Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think would have happened if you enjoyed Miyagi-Do during the events of Cobra Kai Season 6? Let me know in the comments below. YouTube lets me know that the majority of you are not subscribed, so if you guys could subscribe, that would be much appreciated. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And I'll see you guys next time.